All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Narek Rome. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs and Arts Education at Americans for the Arts, and welcome to this webinar in advance of the 2016 Arts Advocacy Day. And this is a preview. The idea is that Kate McClanahan and I will give some background information on what this day is about and hopefully provide you a sense of what to expect and what to prepare for before you get here, so that you could make the most of your visit and have a great visit here to Washington in another couple days. So just a couple top points for Arts Advocacy Day about it. So this is a day that is the product of work by over 89 national partners, Americans for the Arts being one. And we've been working with our colleagues here in Washington and around the country to create a unified platform of support for the arts right at the moment when Congress is beginning their consideration of appropriations and when they're deepening their work in some of the policy areas that we seek to impact. In addition to the national partners that are representing all kinds of arts disciplines and artists and organizations around the country, we will also be relying on the leadership of more than 40 state captains who are typically state advocacy leaders at home throughout the states, and they also provide leadership here in Washington with meeting with their congressional delegations. And right now, the week, just a few days before people start arriving in Washington, we have over 425 registrants for Arts Advocacy Day. We think we'll get to somewhere in the 450 range by March 7th and 8th. So here's Kate McClanahan, our Director of Federal Affairs, will give a little intro as to the landscape that you should expect in another week in terms of what Congress is doing.
Sure, and just a big thank you, too, to everyone for making the trip to come to Washington. Advocacy can certainly happen all the time, but this, as Narek mentioned, is a day that brings so many together to join together in those efforts. And as Narek mentioned, the 29th year for this, so we're excited to hit that landmark. So what's happening on the Hill? Well, as everyone may know, it's an election year. The election is not until the fall, but the schedule in Congress does tend to shift a little bit because of those dynamics. So that's sort of front and center for everyone's mind. But even with that happening, today also being Super Tuesday, as we're recording this, the appropriations calendar, so with the budget process, the Congress still has to fund the government. If they don't, as we know, it hits a shutdown that happens at the end of the fiscal year. So that is work that's happening right now with hearings happening, some agency heads coming in to defend their budget proposals. And with the landmark new education law that passed at the end of December, signed into law, there's a lot of now oversight happening with implementation for that 18-month period, hearings happening in both the House and the Senate with that. So that's sort of some of the landscape happening with the spring timing of this. That's sort of the start always with the House as they work through, as we call it, the appropriations process. Again, that's the funding process for all the different agencies and different programs within that too. So right now, circulating, great timing, is a funding letter for the National Endowment for the Arts. That's being led by the Arts Caucus, and that's open for signatures. And we hope as you come in for meetings, you'll flag that and help us get new record numbers of signers behind that letter. And then also, too, with different efforts happening on STEAM, Congresswoman Bonamici and Congresswoman Stefanik are leading the letters there, too, to get fully funding authorized levels for one of the programs that helps with well-rounded education initiatives. I mean, that letter is also circulating, so another one. And as you come in, and we'll walk through the schedule too of what it's like on that Monday for the training day, you'll get more details and more information about these policy asks, and then also some of that immediate action that your visits really make happen because of your presence of having those face-to-face meetings, as we often get with survey results from those who work on the Hill every day. There's nothing like a face-to-face meeting. So thanks for making the trip.
So just to get from the very beginning, what will be really critical, as Kate already referenced, is knowing who your member of Congress is in the House. Obviously, there'll be 2 senators from your state, and so at a minimum, there there would be 3 members of Congress to meet with, and depending on how your state captain has set up meetings, you may be joining for additional meetings beyond your immediate member of Congress or just with your Senate group. But here's a quick way to find out. You could type, if you go to our Voter Voice site, you can put in your zip code and get a sense exactly who your member of Congress is as well. And so going into more of the fine print in terms of the schedule, this is what is on the Arts Advocacy Day website. You'll get a sense here. We're starting on Monday, March 7th, and the registration will be open in the morning. There'll be a continental breakfast, and this whole day will be spent at the Omni Shoreham Hotel in Washington, D.C. in the Woodley Park neighborhood. And the idea is behind this day is we spend a day talking about these policy issues, providing background, giving you the congressional handbook to have, and hearing presentations on some of the latest and freshest research and talking points so that you can be an effective advocate when you meet with congressional staff and with members of Congress. You can be right on the right page as to what they're thinking about in terms of their work. And so we do that by having a newcomers orientation. For those of you that this will be your first visit to Arts Advocacy Day, we'll have a special half-hour briefing then, and then also a legislative and political update that will take place shortly thereafter. And then we'll be getting into some of the policy areas. So we'll have a full hour briefing on the National Endowment for the Arts and the arts and education programs at the U.S. Department of Education. And we will be doing presentations on those 2 topics in 2 ways. One will be for a beginning or novice group of advocates who have not experienced these issues in terms of federal policy before, and then we'll be doing it for advanced advocates who have made multiple trips to Washington or familiar with these issues. We'll be providing more of an advanced perspective on these issues as well. Following the NEA and Arts Ed issue brief discussions, we'll be hearing from our Vice President of Policy and Research, Randy Cohen, in this Facts and Figures to Make Your Case. It's actually, while the session title is Facts and Figures, it's always one of the most entertaining hours. Randy is a wonderful presenter, and so that will be a good one. And then we'll be able to move into the lunch hour with a speaking program. We'll be hearing from some of the state leaders around the country, state arts agency leaders, about how they partner with the National Endowment and are responsible for federal dollars as well. After lunch, there'll be a buffet lunch, by the way, and following lunch, there'll be a series of concurrent breakouts that will be taking place on policy issues. We'll have a number of those, and Kate, can you cover the breakout sessions?
Sure. This gives you an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into the policy issues. If you've had a chance to look at the handbook already, you'll know that there's a lot of issues that are covered within that to describe. And so we work with our national partners to give you more in-depth information. And you get to select 2 of these. It's up to you to decide which ones you'd like to visit and learn more about those. And then following that too, this was all designed to help develop sort of both the data that you've learned with the facts and figures session that Narek mentioned, and then the stories too that you bring, the local examples. These are the pieces that your members really need to hear, and we can help arm you with a lot of the sound bites and the good talking points and the sort of data that makes you go, oh, I didn't know that. But the stories that you bring really help with this too. And so we hope this day gives you both a chance to learn more and then also feel very comfortable with the different asks happening up on the Hill, which is then shown by a demonstration of what these meetings really look like. And we have some different examples to run through. Meetings have a lot of different types and forms, depending if you're meeting with a member, if you're meeting with staff, if you have a meeting that's been, abruptly cut short and maybe you're meeting out in the hallway. We give you all of these tips and different ways to make those meetings successful. That then concludes with some time to actually get closer to your state delegation, talk through, and sort of map out how you want to schedule your day with the different programs that are happening too. And that's followed then by a couple of fun events for the evening to hopefully help inspire and continue to give that sense of the momentum occasion of the day here marking the 29th year. So there's a couple of networking sessions, one tailored for students, another one for the Arts Action Fund, and that will be also one of the artists who is helping participate this year for us and amplifying the voice of Arts Advocacy Day is Letticy. So she'll be at that PAC reception, which is Political Action Committee, happening there too. That does come with a additional registration amount there. And then you'll have transportation to the Kennedy Center, John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts for our annual lecture. Delivering that lecture, we're excited to continue with the STEAM theme that's happening, and we are so thrilled to have John Maeda be the guest speaker for delivering that lecture, and he will be introduced by a member of Congress, the member of Congress who has really helped usher in the STEAM movement, the co-chair of the Congressional STEAM Caucus. Even though the House is not in session, she has been able to arrange her schedule to join us. So we are deeply thankful and grateful to her and her staff for being able to be a part of this lecture that's happening at 7:30. Doors open at 7, and you'll get all this in your orientation, but your tickets are already part of that, but you do need to bring those with you for that. We do then have transportation that will take you back to the hotel, so don't need to worry unless you'd like to spend a night out on the town. And if this is your first time coming to Washington, there's so much happening, so definitely take advantage of the time that you have here and see the sights.
So thanks, Kate. That wraps up Monday, March 7th. And so now we're looking at, on the screen, a update or schedule for Tuesday, March 8th. So we will move then from where all those events we just spoke to you take place at either the Omni or the Kennedy Center. We start Tuesday with the Congressional Arts Kickoff event on Capitol Hill, and that's taking place on the Senate side in the Kennedy Caucus Room. It will start at 8:30 in the morning, and it is a little bit of a program. First of all, you'll get there either by taxi or take the Metro to Union Station from the hotel. And we'll have a series of speakers that will be both led by our President and CEO, Bob Lynch, and then he'll be joined by the singer Letticy, who you may have seen the evening before, and then the chairman of the NEA, Jane Chu, and a couple members of Congress. Because we'll be in the Senate, we're expecting a few senators to join us that morning. And all this is sort of a run-up to a sense of building up excitement around spending the day going to meet with your congressional delegations. And that's what follows. So the kickoff goes until 10. There will be breakfast sandwiches there. It is available. And then when that ends by 10 o'clock, you and your captains will be following the schedules that you worked on the day before to visit with congressional offices on those pre-scheduled appointments. Probably the Senate visits will take place first because you'll already be on the Senate side, and then moving over to the House side later in the afternoon.
And speaking of those movements of meetings too, and tip to wear comfortable shoes, but yet ones that look professional if those exist. I'm still trying to find that perfect pair of shoes, but you'll be doing a lot of walking, so do keep that in mind for your different meetings that you're having.
So that wraps up the formal schedule, and that gives you a sense of how your time will be spent. Now we'll move to a little bit of a discussion about the overall message that we're trying to deliver to the congressional delegations. As I mentioned at the very top of this webinar, Arts Advocacy Day is a combined effort of 89 national organizations all working together to arrive at consensus positions and messaging on about a dozen different policy issues. At the top of that list and in the Congressional Handbook is support for the National Endowment for the Arts and arts education, and then a series of other issues related to those, and including tax policy, and there's some technology issues and some international issues. Now, we won't go in depth into those topics now because that's what you'll be experiencing on Monday at the Omni Hotel. However, overall, the message for your members of Congress and their staff is to share your experience we will have these talking points available for you, and we will have specific asks available, and certainly hope that you will relay those. But to bundle those asks with the local examples and the research that you come to town with, that you as a part of an arts leader from home, perhaps you work with an organization or a member, staff member from an arts organization, that's the kind of examples that we hope that you'll relay to the congressional offices, because members of Congress and their staff, they hear from all kinds of policy leaders and organizations every day. What we're trying to stand out on this day by doing is having their constituents in town that know the right things to ask them, and also present them with the right information that helps them see the impact and the importance of the arts in their congressional districts. If we continue on, we were doing that by, we've mentioned a few times now, the Congressional Arts Handbook, which you'll receive upon when you register on Monday morning, arrive at the hotel. And in that will be all the different documents that we'll be covering on that Monday. Now, this book today, as a matter of fact, is being delivered to every congressional office on Capitol Hill. So the book is written for both you, the advocate, and it's written for the congressional staff. It's available online right now at the address that you see at the bottom of the screen. You can download it. If you are feeling very ambitious, you can print it all out and prepare for your trip this week in advance. One of the other items that will also be provided for your meetings will be a list by each state of the grants that come from the National Endowment for the Arts. In this case, it would be the year prior, and it shows, in this case, you can see Alaska, you can see where the grants went, how much they were, and what they were, in a short way, a description of what they're for. The reason we prepare and provide this is to try and make that connection to the staffer and to the member of Congress that their vote, their support for the National Endowment for the Arts results in these actual dollars arriving at home at local organizations that they represent. And so they can see the full cycle of their support in Congress and what it means to you, the constituent, when you come to town.
We already mentioned too your state captain, so there's a list online too that you can check that out and make sure that you're in touch with your state captain ahead of those meetings. And then finally, Ellie Shingleton is our coordinator for all things related to Arts Advocacy Day, and she is always happy, as long as the full team, to help with any questions you have, both heading into Arts Advocacy Day and then day of. We'll have staff there to help answer all of those questions. But if you have questions right now, those too. So right now we're unmuting the have a question or chat box to type something in. We're happy to answer your questions. Anything that you've got on your mind that we can help with.
Anybody out there have a question about the content that we've just introduced, or questions about the visit, how to prepare for it? We're open right now, and if there are none, that's absolutely fine. You can either email Ellie separately at that address.
One of the questions we do often get is, well, what about the weather? What is it going to be like while I'm there? And as everyone may know from weather in Washington, it really varies in March. Right now we're expecting to be on the cold side, around 30 to 40 degrees, but no snow. Last year we had snow, so we're hoping that that holds and there'll be no snow and no delays for your travels. Okay, well, with no questions, then we will end the webinar. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your preparations and traveling to Washington for Arts Advocacy Day. Please check the weather, as we understand there may be some snow on Friday, and if you're arriving earlier in that weekend, that may impact your travel. Otherwise, safe travels. We'll see you on Monday morning. And again, thank you very much. We look forward to meeting you.